This is what I mean by Julian and Ranice. Okay. Well, welcome to the podcast. I've decided to start doing a podcast because I wanted to share a lot of conversations that Julian and Ranice and myself, Beatrice, has to share about life. And this is going to be a very intense podcast. And I wanted to talk about a few topics, maybe like about the craft, the mind, the body, and the soul. But today, specifically, I want to talk about something a bit more salient to what is happening in my life right now, which is doing Tai Chi, and how I am always very curious as to how I can get straight into that flow state, but I haven't even got to that yet. So maybe you can start by introducing yourselves properly. The jingle.
I guess I'll start first. My name is Julian. I am Beatrice's brother, but more importantly, I did so many things in my life. So confusing. I was in medical school. I moved over to video making, entrepreneurship, now theatre, now Tai Chi, and all in all, when people ask me to introduce myself, I think I like to just say that I'm Julian. I'm just me.
I'm Ranice. I do a lot of things. I do theatre. I do Tai Chi. I live. Yeah.
It's so real, man.
And we are the founders of Ushuan Theatre also. It's a theatre group collective, hopefully soon to be company. And it means I am human. So the Wu is actually the ancient character for war. So it means 我是人 or I am human.
Okay. Maybe I'll introduce a bit more about myself, because I've also just graduated from school. So I guess a lot of people can relate in that sense, when the life after university, where everything is so uncertain, and whether you should start climbing the ladder or not, which is a discussion I've been having with Julian and Ranice a lot about what I want to do in my life.
I think it's very interesting that you spoke about climbing a ladder. And I feel maybe a lot of Singaporeans can resonate with the fact that we feel as if there is a barometer of success that we have to reach in life, and it is as if our life, or at least the life that I've known growing up here, it's like after you finish primary school, okay, you know the next step is secondary school, and you know the next step is university, and then you know the next step is, I don't know, getting a job, and then getting married, and then getting a BTO, and then having kids, and then you repeat the entire cycle. It feels like sometimes the life that we are meant to live is not ours. It is as if someone wrote a computer programming language and then we are living inside it. So I've had a lot of ruminations on what that ladder actually is. What are we climbing towards?
When I was a kid in primary school, I remember trying to figure out the system, how does things work. And I think there was this class called Critical Thinking and Logic that I did really well in, and I was like, oh my gosh, through logic, I can convince everyone of anything, including my parents. So when I wanted, a game, I'll be like, okay, logically speaking, if I do well in my exams, it means I'm disciplined, and having games will be fun for me. I need to learn about weapons inside the game because it came out from my exams. What is a sniper rifle? And so I thought from that time that logic was the king to conquer all, to literally bend the will of the universe into like it allows me to bend the will of the universe into what I want it to be through logic. And it's only later on through the arts that I realized, oh my gosh, no. Logic can get you so far for now because our society is painted in that way, such that it gives a lot of weight and a lot of benefits to logic. But throughout all of history, all of mankind, we have been already thinking very hard how to expand the mind. Some of it is through the body, some of it later on, I guess, in different ages, it was logic, mathematical thinking, scientific thinking. But there's so much more to life than just logic. So
I think it's also important to, I mean, I don't know, at some point, to draw a distinction between logic and rationality. I don't think the two are one and the same, even though we constantly suppose that a logical person is a rational person. But I think there is a difference, just like there is a difference between wisdom and intelligence. I feel like logic is kind of like a way of reasoning. It is like, say, having spatial awareness. But you cannot say that having spatial awareness makes you a rational or irrational person. And I say this because I feel like there is a lot of labels that is put out there, like, oh, you are a very logical person, which means that you are trustworthy, you are a go-getter, you're practical, you know what you want in life. Versus like, oh, you are a very artistic type, and therefore you are whimsical, no one can understand you. And I feel like we need to start in this way, very weird way, like thinking more critically, like as a society, when we are labeling things.
yeah, if I ask you, Beatrice, what's logic? What would you say?
I have no idea, man. I have no idea how to describe logic.
I can give you one very simple one. If A, then B. If this, then this. If I throw this orange at your head, you would feel pain, for example. So if there's a cause and there's an effect, there's a logical line, a through line, a cause and effect. And there was this philosopher that was thinking very hard, like, okay, clearly, maybe the whole world can be based off of cause and effect. And then they came up with this whole principle that the whole world can be mathematically understood by cause and effect. But it came to a problem. And the problem was biology. Biology didn't make sense. So for example, what created the leaves of a tree? And you say, well, I guess maybe the roots, the roots draw out the water, the minerals, and give to the leaves. And then the leaves have the minerals to become a leaf and grow. Then I say, okay, so what created the roots? And you say, oh, I guess the leaves, took the sunlight's energy and created the roots. And I say, okay, so what created the leaves? And then it becomes a circular argument. A is B because B is A. And then you go into a cycle and then it makes no sense. So there was this philosopher that literally, I think his name was Immanuel Kant. And he said, I realized that biology doesn't make sense. Logically, biology doesn't make sense. And we see this all throughout all of science. Anatomy sometimes doesn't make sense. Why do we have this organ? Why is it here? Why does it change sometimes? Or why did it change that way? There's so many exceptions. I think it's very beautiful that the moment you try to use logic to conquer, the world and nature shows you no, you can't.
Do you think there is dangers to presupposing that the entire world works logically?
Yes.
Like, I'm talking about the framework of if A, then B. If B, then C. Therefore, if A, then C.
Yes. As I was growing up, I was thinking very hard and watching everyone around me in school, in primary school, Catholic high primary, grade school, but in the system, what was it teaching me and what does it mean to succeed? Very quickly, it felt like academics, maybe CCA, maybe leadership, I guess a little bit of sports here and there, being better than other people, and then therefore the whole assumption that using logic to create systems, formulas to beat the world, because I want to be the best. Very, very, very dangerous because I think I was doing something terrible. I was cutting out the humanity in things. Yeah, this very strange thing of what does it mean to be human. Because if we remove the humanity in things, and I think different religions will say different things, whether it's the spirit, the soul, the energy of things. If I remove all that and just think in a very shallow sense, very, very scientifically, in a way, nothing makes sense. In a way, like, everything can be predicted, everything becomes a bit boring, and I very quickly lose meaning. Now, I think I'm going to jump the gun a little bit. If I start to lose meaning, I will feel meaningless, nihilistic, hedonistic, just everything is just shit anyway. And then I will spiral into, I guess, mental distress, existentially being lost. Because not so what? Why bother doing anything? Why bother getting work? Why bother having friends if everything's going to lose? Nothing makes sense. And then therefore it's a crisis, a meaning crisis.
I want to poke the argument a bit, just so that we can flesh out some of the details of what you're saying. So I don't quite understand the link or the relationship between being logical and losing your humanity. Can you elaborate more about that?
Aha, ha, ha, ha. Using this simple example of witnessing patterns in life, cause and effect. If this thing happens, then that thing happens. And of course, you can increase complexity. If I walk, I might fall. So I need to walk a certain way. Through pattern recognition, you can overcome a lot of problems and you start to think a few different ways. I think one of the things I will start to think about is I can start to decide what I want because I can then create things to what I want. But notice when I think about what I want, it is a very up here, a very mind-based thinking of what I want. I want people to like me. So when I enter a room, I'm going to stay quiet, I'm going to listen to the conversation, and through pattern, I would try to figure out what you like and talk about that. But when I do that, as we remember, we talked about biology not making sense. People are going to sense something is off. I think it's what they'll sense. They'll sense something feels off, something feels inauthentic. The rhythm and timing of what I'm saying is
It feels
weird.
calculated.
It feels calculated, absolutely. And therefore, normal humans will sense instinctually there is danger. Something is inconsistent. What I thought I wanted, which is I want to be loved, I want people to like me, now becomes Julian feels strange. He feels calculative. He feels inauthentic. I can't put my finger on it, but there's something there. And when you dig deeper into maybe questioning me, what happened? I could tell you, actually, I was following a formula. And as a result, I killed the chance to actually connect with you. Because I thought that my own will can take over rather than listening to, I guess in a way you can call it the will of God or the natural order of things, or in a way, the chance for random acts to occur.
That's me at the start of this podcast. All set up and already start a topic in my mind. And I didn't even elaborate anything about how it's gonna get there. And I immediately just went like, okay, we're gonna talk about this, let's talk about this, which is like so unnatural. Because I started to think too logically. But of course, at the end of the day, the conversation will never be the same because each time you have a conversation about something, even if it's the same topic, it always is about something different, right? But yeah, man. Okay, but continue. I just realized as Julian was freaking saying it, I was started to analyze myself again. Because I was like, why was I so freaking awkward? For what? There's literally no one here.
There's no one here but
us. The only thing is the setup that has changed.
I think the thing about formulas is that for a formula to work, the input and output needs to be consistent. So for example, 1 + 1 = 2. So when we think in a very formulaic way, all of that is based on the assumption that the subject matter we're thinking about is unchanging. It is fixed. It will never, ever, ever change. And while that may work for some things in life, like, I don't know, this bowl has 1, 2, 3, 6 oranges, and if you take one, then there's 5 left. Things like people, humanity, living things. Even I bet when you go to the atomic level of like science, there are always exceptions. And even within the human like entire lifespan, a human will continue to change, to grow, to evolve. And so when we assume that everything works on the basis of formulas, we are actually dehumanizing our interactions with people, even with ourselves, because how we see the world is also a reflection of how we see ourselves. And so, what is it like to see yourself as always consistent, unchanging, fixed, solid? You are ridding yourself and other people the possibility of growth. And I feel that is so damning. But if everyone in society thinks like that, then there is no future imaginable where things can change. And then we get into a cycle. And then that's when I feel I will truly say like, wow, we are fucked as a society.
That concept of the person being dynamic or static is huge to me. I have some examples of generally how this infiltrates normal conversation. If I say, hey guys, meet Beatrice. Beatrice is always happy. Beatrice is always a very happy girl. It sounds very nice, but I have just put a label on you. You're not allowed to be sad. And therefore, if you feel sad, you are a defect. You are broken. How can that be? We are always sad, always happy in different ways. You know, it's changing. Or even if you put to yourself, I am a very disciplined person. So I've put this label and that constrains me. And you will quickly realize in life it doesn't work. So for example, you talked about this topic being flow state. I can understand it as a state of mind whereby my body and mind is completely aligned. I can do my Tai Chi and my body flows as my mind guides it to flow. And I realized that if I want to enter into flow state, if I see my body as static, it means if I do this formula, if I jog, I will always can enter the flow. I can always enter the flow state through a formula. And if you try, shit, it doesn't work. Right now, I don't know why. I just cannot move like how I want to move. Of course, we don't mean in a technical sense of striking poses. We mean from human to human interaction. If people watch me flow, it feels like I'm in the moment. I'm present. But I can't achieve this presence because the formula I used to enter this flow state didn't work. That's because potentially I'm seeing myself as static. What needs to happen is you see yourself as dynamic. I can change. Anything can happen. Therefore, I need to witness myself in the moment and know what I need. I slept wrongly, so my neck hurts. I should stretch my neck first before I start. Maybe. I've been sitting all day. I should move and get my blood flowing before I start. Maybe. I'm angry with you before I start. I should talk to you about it. Maybe flag out either a concern or put a pin in the conversation. Like, hey, actually, Ranice, I want to talk to you about something later on. But having done that, I can let go of the past. I think being in the flow state is a lot of it is being present. I'm not bothered by burdens of the past, and I'm not planning for the future. I'm here with you.
And I realized it really shows, even for when I was practicing and doing my routine yesterday, how I suddenly had that urge. I really wanted to get good, and I only have 70 days left before my competition. I felt was that no, so much better than the past times that I did it, because it was always very reflective of my emotions in that particular day. Like the day before, so shit, because I just woke up from a nap and I was like, okay, I need to go and exercise. I just couldn't do it, Even my knees are like in so much pain, but yesterday I could do it so much better because my mindset changed rather than that having that block. Because with that block, I just cannot perform that routine or like even remember it. Yeah.
I feel like this is a very common thing also, where you hear artists or singers, musicians, practitioners, they go like, oh, today I'm feeling sad or tired or angry, and therefore my work is not as good. But then my response is, when did we learn that being tired or sad or angry is a bad state to be in, and therefore an inferior state to start creating. Because you look at your nephew Spiridon, right? He's 3-4 years old. No matter how he's feeling on that day, if he's feeling a bit introverted, he plays by himself. If he's feeling really excited, he runs around the room. And then every moment after that, it changes. It doesn't mean also that if you are tired, it means that there is a ceiling in which you can only get this good. You know, I think the discipline of having craft and being an artist is you are able to accept how your body feel in that moment, and you are able to mold time in a way that you achieve what you need to achieve that day. And I feel this verticality of where you are right now and where you want to be and climbing that ladder, I think that ladder is more important. And I think that is the ladder that I'm interested in more than the ladder of success that we've been fed.
I have a huge fear that people do not understand this concept. So, for example, I don't care about being present. I think it's not important. And as I think to my friends who may not understand this concept, there are some examples I can think of. So one, for example, is Patricia saying in the taolu, in my routine, I cannot remember the steps. I usually can, now I can't. Maybe it's just because I haven't practiced enough, or maybe not. Another one is literally holding the horse stance or squatting down. It's a very easy motion, and for myself and with my strength, I definitely can. But for some reason, I can't. My muscles don't allow me to. For soccer players, when I was playing soccer as a kid, there was this phrase we used to call, I'm on form today. ONFORM, I'm on form. Means I kicked the ball, I wanted to go there, bam, it already goes in. And it was so beautiful to see how one of our Tai Chi students, after Tai Chi class, said that I went for a soccer match the next week. And I was so on form. I was completely aligned. I told the body to move, and it did. The body is kind of flowing with how the mind wants to flow. So these are some small examples to show flow state or being present. And again, a lot of people, as well as myself, used to think that this is just pure luck. Today I'm on form or I'm not on form. But what I'm understanding from you in terms of training the verticality is that no matter my state, I can accept and then guide my body in a way to become on form, to become present.
The discipline of an artist rests on your ability to be on form no matter the circumstance. And I think it's so much harder than it sounds, because every second, every millisecond, we are dealt with 1,000 different possibilities. And it is as much as like there is a 2-degree increase in room temperature and it causes you to sweat, and then it shifts your, like every millisecond you have to not only learn how to confront the infinite changes, environmental, psychological, emotional, mental changes around you, but also to swim in that ocean to get to your destination. Which is why, I don't know, I feel like it's so important, right, on the concept of flow, for people to have a craft. And I feel like we had this discussion a few years ago also, where I asked you what your craft was. And then we were talking about, is sitting at a computer and sending emails a craft? It could be, and it could be not, right? And you were saying something about leadership. Is leadership a craft? Yes and no. So then we were talking about what makes something a craft versus a job.
Something you're good at versus something that requires a whole lifetime of self-cultivation, whereby the insight that the craft gives to you, the wisdom that the craft gives back to you, is infinitely growing as well.
It's like choosing a craft or having a craft is like having a pair of glasses where you look at the world from that lens. So like, say my craft is photography. Suddenly the way in which I look at moments when I'm crossing the road is so much more elevated, is so much more salient to me. Fleeting beauty speaks to me much, much more than says another random rando who is like crossing the road next to me. Simply because to have a craft means to train yourself in that salience over and over again. And therefore, I feel like having, in Christianity, that time when I went to your church, they were like, oh, Jesus had a craft, and his craft was carpentry. And I was like, I feel like to say he has a craft, right, is actually is a very sacred word to use. And I don't know if people understand the gravity of that word, to say that your craft is in carpentry, because then it means that how do you view the world from the lens of a carpenter? What is the artistry in carpentry? And to actually contemplate that. Actually, what do you think the artistry is in carpentry?
Ooh. I hold the thought very quickly just to answer something that has been brewing in my head, which is another way to describe a craft or like a situation whereby doing this thing gives me insight. That word is sacred. So sacred is defined as an unlimited source of insight, sort of. So when you tell me about carpentry, and for it to give me an unlimited source of insight, sounds like I know how to create something in a shallow sense. I can create a bench. Of course, I know that to have a bench or a chair, I need to sit on it. It needs to be able to handle my weight. But that means to some degree, I understand physics. I understand material science. I understand joints, connections, the mathematics of that, and more. And also how to take care of the wood, how to treat the wood, how to treat the material so that it can take care of me back. There is both a giving and a receiving to the environment, such that the function or the structural, functional organization of something becomes that. Because what is a chair? That's a chair. Is it really? If let's say if we remove two legs, is it still a chair? Is it not really? But why not? It was a chair. How can we removing functions change it? Now I say, oh, because I can't sit on it. But what if I change it such that two legs can still allow a center of balance, such that I can sit on it? Is it therefore a chair again? And you say, I guess so. That's strange. So again, not so simple as I know how to deal with materials and put it together. I understand how to structurally organize something to achieve a certain function and how it changes.
I want to elaborate on that also, because I had a friend who actually was a carpentry apprentice, and then I remember going to his house and talking to him, and something he said still stuck with me, which was that when he was working as a carpenter, there will be times when they are sent to a client's house to work on a sink, and he would see his colleague working on a part of a sink, and he would know exactly what to do, even to make the same sink, even though they were not communicating with each other. And they will know exactly by paying attention to what the other person was doing and how they were doing, what parts of the sink they were making, and in his head he would know what he needs to do next in order to support his step. Because of course, when you construct a piece of furniture or something more complex, you need to know how to structurally build it. So there is a step-by-step guide. But then this level of very subtle attention, I think is within the craft of carpentry, but also something about when you are building something for someone, you need to understand what kind of life that person is living. Like if I want to build a chair for you, I need to understand what kind of chair you need. And to understand what kind of chair you need, I need to understand what is your lifestyle, how you are living, what is ergonomic for you. And so it becomes an unspoken dialogue. By building you a chair, I enter your life. I live life through you. And this is just a chair, but maybe it's something more like a house even. Yeah, I need to understand, like, where would you go to in the morning? What do you want to see? And I feel maybe at its highest degree, right? The craft of carpentry affords you the capacity to step into someone's shoes and to live as they had lived. And becomes a portal in which you understand a stranger. So back to when we go, Jesus had some kind of craft in carpentry. I like to think that even though I wasn't living his time, I like to think that that was the passion and the attention to detail in which he approached the craft.
You had a lot of questions?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of things to say in terms of that. When you start saying carpentry, I thought about the technical side of it, or to be able to make a furniture, you know, to know the functions of it. And I started thinking a lot about like architecture because I used to study architecture. In the most part of it as well, it's always about the development before you reach that stage where you start to plan what you want to actually build. And from that whole process, you actually do the ergonomics, the site analysis, and every single thing around the place first before you actually start to design and think of a building, right? And even that, you start to notice the attention to detail a lot more. And in itself, it already becomes like its own craft. But right now, if you ask me if I want to do architecture, I would say no, not at all. Like, that is nothing to do with what I want as my own craft. Because in society now, like if I start to work as an architect, it takes away this attention to detail and I start to become an AutoCAD monkey. Because like studying it is completely different from like working in the field of it and in your day-to-day life.
I paraphrase the question, see if I got it right.
Yeah, okay.
It sounds like you're saying, or you're asking, if I dive deep in the learning and the passion of my craft, it seems incompatible with the working world.
Yeah.
I,
That's why I have Julian and Ranice.
that,
I will find my organizing my chaos. Okay, continue.
I guess the follow-up question is then how, right?
Then how?
Do you have an answer first?
I don't know, you know. I don't know. I think this is the question that every young person will struggle with, including our parents and our grandparents that were once young. I think every generation has to answer for themselves. Then how? And I feel like the needs of every generation is different, just like the needs of every person is different. So I don't know if there is ever a way where we can reconcile what we love to do with the demands of survival. I think the struggle is what makes life actually very meaningful. But at the same time, I feel like we're living in unprecedented times where I feel, this is completely my own opinion, so don't take it with a pinch of salt, and that with the advancements of AI, we are starting to see that a lot of jobs which doesn't require human creativity and humanization slowly become obsolete. So things like becoming an AutoCAD monkey, who is to say 20 years from now, Chat Architect GPT doesn't have like a function where you can tell it what you want to do and then it generates an AutoCAD design that you just need to like move around. And so I kind of feel like in this unprecedented time that we're living in, the key question is, the key question for how relevant are you in this world, or how relevant your job is, becomes very much tied to how human, how creative can you be.
I feel like in the earlier ages of time, potentially survivability is low. The chances of me surviving is so low that my passion actually is almost completely in line with survival. The more passionately I study the weather to understand how weather changes my crops, or the more passionately I look at my plant, the more I will survive. Like, the linkage is very, very clear. Whereas nowadays, I would say that it's so easy to survive. A little bit of a naughty joke. Sounds like in school, if you think you will fail classes and you think you will be absolutely poor, you might say, I have to work in McDonald's. Supposedly, like, as if that the lowest class of that is like, the F&B worker of sorts. Or a cleaner, they might say. You didn't say you'll die. You didn't say, oh, I will starve and die.
Yeah, that's true. That's so true.
Which goes to show that times have changed. Now, if survival is so easy in a way, then where's the discomfort? There is in a way no discomfort, or less of a discomfort. The discomfort now comes in the sort of balancing of, clearly the system is efficient when I do this and this, but my goal is not efficiency because survival has already been touched. My goal is my heart and my soul needs to grow. I need to feel fulfilled. I need to feel meaningful. It's not just about, like, in the shallow sense, I need to create art to feel good. No. It's about the world must feel bigger. I need to feel like my entire existence, like a fire, is growing. And the moment you don't feel that way, you feel like it's meaningless, and then that destroys everything. So I also agree, times are unprecedented. No one has ever been able to predict what's happening, nor will predict how things will continue to change. But clearly, this questioning, this discussion about the arts, the craft, the art of being human even, is really, really more relevant than ever before. I would say that it will take over the popular notions. So in the past, it's like, oh, we all need to learn critical thinking, we all need to learn mathematics, science, how to code. Now it will change. We all need to learn how to understand our humanity. It's as if the entire human species has evolved to this state to allow us to now question, what does humanity mean?
Also then, thinking about your question, I wonder if, because I feel it exists across all disciplines, there will be an AutoCAD monkey in architecture and engineering. Then there will also be like, I don't know, people who are spinning the wheel even for creative work like acting, or even for, I don't know, content creation. There is a kind of churning involved. And so if the question is not about the discipline and the field, then I think it's about who you are as a human and who the people you surround with are. The ethos in which the community you are a part of, what fuels you, what drives you.
Yeah.
That's true.
I feel like we can go on for a very long time, but my now heart sensing is that you can allow one last question or you can close it. Up to you.
I have a whole list of questions. So I guess to end off, I wanted to ask in terms of how does one even know what craft they are even interested to do, because there were so many things that I was so passionate about when I was a kid. Or still now is, I have so many different hobbies. How do you know what you really want to do? And maybe more specifically for like Ranice, how you started to do Tai Chi. Also, can I just say Tai Chi is Tai Chi, okay? For all those people that don't know, because a lot of my friends, I tell them that I'm doing Tai Chi now, and they're like, what is that? And I'm like, dude, it's just Tai Chi, bro. Okay, anyway.
Yes, for the record, it's Tai Chi. Okay? Let's commit to the Hanyu pinyin of Tai Chi, because Tai Chi has its own meaning, which means great extremities. Yes. How did I get into it? I was doing a lot of theatre back then. And I found myself very drawn to body-based practices. So a lot of practices that require the use of the entire body. So instead of, say, necessarily doing a straight play on straight as in like a 3-act structure conventional play on stage, I found myself very much drawn to like physical theater, dance theater. And while I was training for that, I realized that as much as my movements were alive and organic, I always felt like I wasn't stepping on concrete. I felt like I had nothing to return to as a base. It was like building a cathedral with no pillars. And then I was contemplating a lot on what is the language of movement that I would like to commit my practice into learning. And then at that time, I was already dabbling in Tai Chi, but not very seriously. But at that time, COVID struck. And then when COVID came, there was this new rule during circuit breaker where you cannot leave the house unless you're exercising. So during that period, I remember going downstairs to exercise every day. By exercising, I mean doing Tai Chi every day, just because I didn't really like running, and it was a way to see something that's not four walls. So I gradually, through the practice of it, learned to love the way I felt after I gave my body that quality of attention. And I slowly saw how my anatomy also changed throughout the years. How much more grounded I feel, how much more at peace I feel with myself and with things that are happening in the world.
I think I would add that you got to listen to your heart.
You gotta listen to your heart.
With the problem being, what if I can't? What if I... Hello? No sound?
Like, how do you know the difference between your mind and your heart?
True, because the mind or the logical narrator inside can swing in any direction. For example, I should do medicine because there's good prospects. I should do engineering because my father is blah blah blah, for example, and I should do this. So I can logically, convince myself of anything. Then how? I feel this is a topic for another day actually. But I think the key question being is this. The work on the self, the work of why you even have a craft or why you should do arts is because you're trying to build the ability to listen to your heart. Which is very long and complex, yeah.
And I think it's also the fundamental, or at least one of the fundamental, I want to say functions, but I don't know if that's too deterministic a word, but one of the primary functions of religion, which is to be in dialogue with the inner self. Because, again, I loved what you said about having an internal narrator, and the internal narrator always talks in 3 languages at once in your brain. And what we deem as mindfulness practices or spiritual practices, because a lot of the spiritual practices are inherently mindful, is used to quieten that voice so that finally we can hear what our hearts is truly saying.
It's a bit tricky because we need to keep things secular of sorts so that everyone can kind of understand. But for those who are of different religious slants, would understand what this means in different ways. The Christians would probably understand this better as listening to the will of God, to the voice of God. I pray, God, please guide me into what what must I do to follow your will?
And the Zen Buddhists will look at this as meditation.
Yeah, to listen to the self. The Taoists would say, I'm trying to follow the Tao. Yeah. So I would say it's all on the same path of the same guidance, that there is something special that is beyond a logical framework, something maybe even divine, whether it's from from within or from external, or maybe an aligning of both, question mark, that guides us towards what is the path for you, that's unique to you. But again, the most simplest way to say it is follow your heart.
Yeah. Wow. So many more questions, but I guess we can end off. And in terms of our future podcasts, I guess we can talk about a lot more of these topics more in depth and talk about religion, talk about the self in terms of maybe even MBTIs and numerology and what's the other one? Horoscopes, which was also quite interesting to know more about how to get to know more about your own self, all these different ways that people have already come out with, and also like, yeah, maybe you can even have like also more than one craft, you know, because I just realized that yours is like theater and tai chi. And yeah, so even to understand like how do you know whether you are an artist, or all the difference between quantity versus quality practicing, or like I have so many things in my book. And yeah, maybe we can even go back into the topic of love and like what even is love and all of that. So tune in for the next podcast. Thank you very much. Bye bye. Yes? Oh, do
Yeah.
you guys want to say anything else?
Let me see. Yeah, okay.